Carmine Galante, also known as the Cigar, was one of the most feared and violent figures in the American underworld during the 20th century. An enforcer turned drug kingpin, Galante rose through the ranks of the Mafia to become a major player in organized crime. His life was a mix of ruthless ambition, deep-rooted Sicilian ties, and a bold disregard for even the highest levels of Mafia authority. His brutal murder in 1979 sent shockwaves through the criminal underworld and marked the end of an era. Carmine Galante, born Camillo Galante on February 21, 1910, in East Harlem, New York City, was the son of Sicilian immigrants from Castellammare del Golfo. His parents, Vincenzo and Vincenza Galante, arrived in America in 1906, seeking a better life, but found only poverty and struggle in the crowded tenements of Manhattan. From an early age, Galante displayed a violent streak. At just 10 years old, he was arrested for the first time and sent to reform school. By age 15, he had dropped out of school entirely and was running with a local street gang involved in theft, extortion, and assaults. He quickly gained a reputation as a cold, calculating criminal who didn't hesitate to use violence. In 1925, Galante was jailed for assault, and by the Prohibition era, he was working as a hitman and bootlegger for the Mafia. According to police records, he was involved in a series of contract killings and smuggling operations. In 1931, during a stint behind bars, a prison psychiatrist diagnosed him with psychopathy, citing his lack of empathy and cold-blooded demeanor. This assessment would prove eerily accurate. Galante's most famous nickname, the Cigar, came from his habit of always having a thick Cuban cigar clenched between his teeth, even in death. His Sicilian nickname, Lilo, also followed him throughout his criminal career. To law enforcement and fellow mobsters, he was the Butcher. New York detectives believed Galante was responsible for more than 80 murders throughout his life. Retired NYPD detective Ralph Salerno famously said, "Galante had dead eyes, no emotion, no humanity. He looked right through you like you weren't there." Even within Mafia circles, Galante was feared. His reputation for ordering hits without hesitation, even against made men, made him both dangerous and unpredictable. After serving time in the 1930s, Galante reemerged as an enforcer for the Bonanno crime family. By 1939, he was working as a driver and bodyguard for boss Joseph Bonanno. Bonanno, impressed by Galante's loyalty and effectiveness, soon entrusted him with more responsibility, including control over the family's burgeoning narcotics trade. In the 1950s, Galante was dispatched to Montreal, Canada, where he orchestrated the North American end of the infamous French Connection heroin pipeline. Heroin was shipped from Turkey to Marseille, processed by Corsican chemists, and funneled into the U.S. through Canada. Under Galante's leadership, this operation generated more than $50 million annually by the late 1950s. Galante's deep ties to Sicilian mafia families gave him an advantage. In 1957, he traveled to Palermo to meet with key Sicilian bosses alongside Joseph Bonanno and even Lucky Luciano. It was during these meetings that Galante recruited a group of young Sicilian mobsters, later known as Zips, to serve as his personal enforcers and heroin couriers in the U.S. In 1962, Galante was convicted of drug trafficking and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. He served 12 years before being released on parole in 1974. Upon his release, he returned to a Bonanno family in disarray. Internal strife and federal pressure had weakened the family's leadership, and Galante saw an opportunity to take control. Galante considered himself the rightful heir to Joseph Bonanno and began muscling out rivals with brute force. He declared himself boss and launched an aggressive campaign to seize total control of heroin distribution in the U.S., ignoring the Mafia Commission's protocols and profit-sharing traditions. This move did not go unnoticed. Galante's hunger for power, his refusal to share heroin profits with the other families, and his growing army of loyal Zips alarmed the heads of the 5 families and the Commission. Even his own family members began to fear him. On July 12, 1979, Galante was having lunch at Joe and Mary's Italian-American restaurant in Bushwick, Brooklyn, when 3 masked gunmen burst in and opened fire. Galante was shot multiple times, one bullet hitting him directly in the eye. He died instantly, slumped back in his chair with his cigar still lodged in his mouth, Photos of the murder scene became infamous. His lifeless body, cigar in place, became a chilling symbol of Mafia ruthlessness. What was even more shocking was that his bodyguards, who were seated nearby, did nothing. It later emerged that they had been bribed or ordered to stand down, possibly under direction from the Mafia Commission, which had secretly greenlit the hit. Galante never broke ties with his Sicilian homeland. His loyalty to Castellammare del Golfo remained strong throughout his life. He frequently collaborated with Sicilian crime clans, especially the powerful Greco and Inzerillo families. His alliance with the Sicilian Mafia gave him access to a transatlantic drug network and protection. But it also created friction with American-born mobsters who viewed the Zips as reckless and dangerously loyal only to Galante. His close collaboration with Sicilian clans made him a threat not just to New York's 5 families, but to the entire balance of power in the international drug trade. Eventually, that threat proved too big to ignore. In 1931, sentenced to 12.5 years for attempted robbery and shooting a police officer. In 1943, arrested in connection with the assassination of anti-fascist journalist Carlo Tresca, though charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. In 1962, received 20-year sentence for heroin trafficking, released in 1974. In 1978, arrested again for parole violations, but was acquitted in 1979 shortly before his death. Carmine Galante's legacy is complex. To law enforcement, he was a drug lord and a killer. To some Mafia insiders, he was a visionary who saw heroin as the future. But to most, he was a power-hungry tyrant who pushed too far and paid the ultimate price. His death marked a turning point in organized crime. The old-school Mafia codes were fading, and a more cutthroat, drug-driven era was emerging. Galante was one of the first to fully embrace that future, and he was killed for it. Today, Galante's name remains associated with 1. Heroin trafficking. He was one of the architects of the U.S. heroin boom. 2. Sicilian influence. His Zips played a lasting role in transnational Mafia activity. 3. Mafia Commission justice. His assassination showed that even a self-declared boss could be removed if he threatened the collective.